Good morning, students. Today we shall now discuss the remaining lines of this poem, The Sea and the Skylark, written by G.M. Hopkins. We have done only 4 lines, that is the first stanza of this poem, in our previous lecture. Now we shall go with the second stanza, that is lines 5 to 8. As we know very well that this is a poem of 14 lines, that is a kind of sonnet, and here the poet is talking about both the sea and the skylark and contrasting these two voices with the human beings, with the deteriorations, with the crumbling down of the cities, modern cities. So, in the first stanza, we saw that the poet is hearing the roaring sound of the sea on his right hand side. That is, the sea waves strikes the seashore and then returns back, leaving the complete silence on the shore. So the poet describes the tide. In fact, it is the power of tide, impact of the tide, that the sea waves with filled water strikes the shore and leave there the water and the pebbles. Now the poet is talking about the left side of him, where he is hearing the another sound. So the one sound, that is of the sea waves on the right hand. Now, to his left hand, he is hearing the sound of the skylark. So he says, let's go with the text. Left hand of land, I hear the lark ascend. His rash, fresh, rewinded, new-skinned score, in crisps of curl of wild winch whirl, and pour and pelt music, till none's to spill nor to spend. So now the poet is describing about the skylark, whose sound, whose song, whose voice he hears there. So he says that above this earth, off land means above this earth, left side of his hand, he is hearing the lark. Lark means skylark. Ascend means ascending, climbing, flying into the sky, flying up into the air. So the poet is hearing the skylark sound, who is flying up in the sky or in the air. So it's not earthly bird. In fact, it is an ethereal bird, that is above the earth. His rash, fresh, rewinded, new-skinned score. His rash, fresh. So here, rash, fresh means the spontaneous. Fresh, quite fresh. Rewinded, so refreshed, means getting the refreshing again. So the skylark, which is spontaneously flying up into the sky, is getting refreshed again and again and singing the song. So his rash, fresh, rewinded. It is rewinded, renewed. It is renewed. So the song of the again rewinded, new skinned score. So it is rewinded, the new skinned score. It is renewing. The score means the song. New skinned. New skinned. Here the poet has compared the song of the spontaneous song of the skylark with the new skin. And what is the new skin? The new skin of wool. It has been compared, the music score has been compared to the new skin of wool, wool of the sheep. So he means to say that like a skin of wool which is unwound as he climbs the sky to sing and rewound after he returns to the earth. So here he is comparing with the skin of wool, which is opening. When the bird ascends in the sky, it is opening, and when the bird comes down, it is again rewound. तो जैसे स्काईलार्क ऊपर जाता है तो ऐसे लगता है जैसे कोई वूल जो है वो एक तरह से खुलती जा रही है रुई, और जब वो नीचे आता है तो ऐसे लगता है कि वापस वो जो है कि उसी में कलेक्ट होती जा रही है. सो द बर्ड इज स्पॉन्टेनियसली सिंगिंग इन क्रिप्स ऑफ कर्ल ऑफ विंड विंच वर्ल्ड. So in crisps of curl off, it means the skylark seems to whirl his musical score of the winch of his throat. So that this music, this song is coming out from his throat like the crisp of the curl, like the crisp curl of melody, not in a smooth and even flow, but as it were, as it were in the crisp curls of melody. That is, every note of the melody here is compared to a lock of fleece waving in the air. So whirl means wheel, एक तरह से गोल घूमने वाला, छल्ले वाला, और एक तरह से जिसको अपन कहें ओल्ड इंग्लिश में इसको कहते हैं होइस्टिंग मशीन. Winch whirl is a hoisting machine. Wild means heavily or continuously. So it is wheeling, it is cycling. This machine is cycling, which is with a drum or a barrel, and it is turned by a crane. It rotates. So here the music score of the bird compared with the new skinned wool and with the crisp curl of that is coming out from the winch whirl. And pour and pelt music, and in this way the bird is pouring, the bird is singing the rapturous song, is spontaneous song, till none's to spill nor to spend. So his melody is without any effort. It is the pelt, his music in the sense of making great effort to produce it without a pause. So it is spontaneously singing, till none's to spill nor spend. That is, till none other to spill, to pour, or to spend, to use. That is, the skylark sings till there is no longer any music left with him to pour out or to produce. And then the skylark comes down to the earth, rewinding his score for his next flight. So, as the bird is flying up into the sky, its music is also in a greater pitch. We can hear its music clearly when it goes up in the sky, and it pours down spontaneously, hold the music, hold the score, hold the song there, and when it finishes, it comes down back to the earth. This is what here the poet wants to say in this stanza. So in the first stanza he is talking about the sea waves. In the second stanza he is talking about the skylark's song or the music. So these two sides have been covered, as we heard that the both sides. So one side the sea waves, other side the music of the skylark. Okay, so this is what we have the explanation. So we can say Hawkins was intrigued by the bird's ability to ascend in full song time after time during the day. It also sings when descending, while descending. So in this way we have the explanation of these lines, and this bird is singing spontaneously without effort as well as with the continuous effort, so that the nothing can be left behind, and then he comes down in order to refresh himself and again then take the lift. So this is the continuous process that is taking place there. Now come with the lines 9 to 14. So this is the sestet part of this sonnet of the 6 lines, and here we have the conclusion and the thought that the poet wants to convey through those two pictures that were described in 2 stanzas. Now what he says, how these two shame this shallow and frail town, how ring right out our sordid turbid time, being pure we, life's pride and cared for crown, have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime. Our make and making break are breaking down to man's last dust, drain fast towards man's first slime. So, this poem we know was written nearby the town of Ryle, where the poet was standing, and the poet describes here this town as a shallow and frail. These are the terms that have been used for the town or for the urban life as contrasted with the life of nature represented by the sea and the skylark. So the poet says that these two natural sounds of the sea and the skylark are putting to shame the town of Ryle. So these two sounds are putting this town in shame, where life is shallow and devoid of vitality. So in the town which is shallow, which is frail, crumbling town, that is where life is shallow, hollow, and it is devoid of vitality, means there is no life at all in this city, he means to say. Then he says, how ring right out our sordid turbid time. That is the sound of the nature, that is because of their purity, rise far above the sordid and confused human sounds of the town. So the two sounds that he has described, he says they are pure and they are totally above from the sordid, dirty and confused human sounds of the town. So he calls the sounds that are coming from the town are dirty, sordid, and they are devoid of vitality. They are the confused sounds of the human being. Ring right out. This phrase we have here. So here, in fact, these ring right out phrase echoes in memoriam written by the poet, where he says, ring out the old, ring in the new. Ring right out means effectively or fully demolish or supersede. So ring right out means the town which is fully demolished. And right here has been used to lend emphasis. So the idea is that the pure and elemental sound of the sea and the skylark singing exposed by contrast the town which is ugly and degrading. So it has been ring out, that is overthrow. So these two sounds have overthrown, have risen above the sordid and confused human sounds of that town. Then he says, the poet says, we human beings are supposed to be the pride of creation. Third line, being pure, we are supposed to be pure. We life's pride, we human beings are the pride of life and cared for crown. And we are cared for crown means we are honored lords of the whole world. The human being is in fact the pride of creation as well as the honored lords of the whole world. But however, our conditions now have worst. That is, have changed, have deteriorated, have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past time. So the poet means to say that we have lost the pleasure, the charm, the happiness, that delightness of the earth's past prime, that is we had in on the earth in our past. So now we have lost this charm upon this earth where we are supposed to be the pride of life. The human being is the creation, pride of the creation. It is the pride of God Himself. But we have lost everything. Our make and making break. So, meaning is here that our nature and natural inclinations are in the process of decay and degeneration. Our make and making break are breaking down. So, we are in fact breaking down ourselves. We are destroying ourselves. We have lost the joys and charm of the earth when all things were in their prime. So, we being are now in the process of decay and disintegration, deterioration. And this process, he says, will lead us to the state of dust. That is, we will mingle with the dust. As we have come out from the dust, we are made of the dust, and then we are again going to mingle with the dust, which awaits us in death. And it means that the death is waiting for us. We will very soon meet to the death. We have lost everything upon this earth. And this is the man's original state of slime. So our end will thus rejoin our beginning, and we shall end as we begin. We are witnessing not progress but retrogression. He means to say, the poet here means to say that we human beings are again returning to our end. And it means we are not moving towards the progress, but we are moving towards the retrogression. So Hopkins looks very nostalgically at the developing industrial society. He wanted to enter into the life of industrial society and finds it wanting, but he merely stands at a distance and condemns it. That is, he don't want to mingle himself with that life, the life of the development, life of the industry. So, standing on the shore, he criticizes, he condemns the life of the city. That is the life of the industry. That is the life of the industrial society. This is what we have in these lines. So far, critical note of this poem is concerned. The poet saw and heard the rise and fall of the tides. We have seen. He Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold also heard the same sound at the seashore, but he found the different thing in those sounds. And what were they? They were the eternal note of sadness was there. But here, this poet, G.M. Hopkins, is enjoying and appreciating the roaring of the sea waves, and he finds life and pleasure in them. Too old to end means the phrase best example of oxymoron. That is the contrary. It employs contradictory process. Something which is old should be easy to end. So, too old to end, too old to end मानी इतनी पुरानी कि वो ख़त्म नहीं हो सकती, जबकि ये तो उल्टा हो गया कि जो चीज़ पुरानी होगी तो वो तो जल्दी ख़त्म होगी, इसलिए इट इज़ कॉल्ड द ऑक्सीमोरॉन and it has here it has acquired a permanent status. So although it is for the end temporary, because all things are to decay and to die or to finish, disappear, but here it has been used in the contrary sense, that is in a permanent status. The second part of the poem are contrasted with the man, as we have seen. Man's deteriorations is very important here, and the poet clearly expresses it. He says that in tasteless seaside town, the seaside town is tasteless, there is no charm, there is no cheers at all. And in this way, these lines, how these two shame this shallow and frail town. This line is very important for the compare and contrast. So, thank you very much, dear students. This is what from me for the explanation of this poem. Next time we will meet another new poem. Thanks.